Hello, respected viewers. It's George from Ireland. So, welcome to my channel. And see, I've washed my hair. I do occasionally. So, this video is about how Russia could still win this war. Unfortunately, Ukraine would lose, the free world would lose, and obviously Ukraine would not be the last victim of Putin's madcap aggression. And as I said, is often stringing it out, believing that Western will to financially support Ukraine will peter out. There are already early signs of that happening. Hope that there is a Republican back in the White House. But you hope that the Ukrainians will exhaust themselves to high casualties in this counteroffensive, which has had rather limited success. But the Russians have bought lots of Shahed drones from Iran. They're suicide drones, as in they blow up, that's it. They can't be reused. They're not things to drop bombs and then come back, or to fire missiles and then come back. And they're establishing a factory in Russia to manufacture these. They've been assembling them, getting the parts and assembling them. And then there's a university where they're students as young as 15 years old. Yes, you can go to university at 15 in some cases. And some of them are drafted into work. They're very long days without proper meal breaks. So ramping up production. And otherwise, it's a big problem for Russia because they're losing artillery at a faster rate than they can manufacture it. Likewise, tanks. The Ukrainians are getting more equipment and actually more modern equipment. So you think that advantage would start to tilt towards the Ukrainians. But otherwise, the Ukrainians are breaking through Russian lines at a slower rate than the Russians can build new trenches. On the other hand, when the Ukrainians have to go slowly to clear minefields, they're being hit by Russian artillery, but there'll be less and less Russian artillery. But yeah, they could still win, partly through drone warfare. I mean, drone warfare on its own is not determinative, but it does confer some sort of advantage on them. The relationship with Iran is so important to Russia. That's why they're suggesting Iran be allowed to join BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa forum for these emerging economies, buying more military hardware from North Korea. That's why North Korea was ramping up the nuclear rhetoric, so upping the ante to provide a decoy. Partly Russia can do that to penalize South Korea for giving $150 billion to Ukraine. Obviously, Russia's espionage operations abroad are helpful to them. Those three Ukrainians arrested, sorry, not Ukrainians, Bulgarians arrested in the United Kingdom way back in February. But there was only come out now that they've been charged. Now, why did it only come out now? I suspect that maybe MI5 leaked that because they want to divert attention from various screw-ups, big data breaches, the electoral commission's data being breached, the police service in Northern Ireland, all that being published supposedly in error. But the first one is very likely a Russian operation. So distract attention from that and show we are doing something. But not that I think that these Bulgarians had anything to do with it. I mean, let's assume they're innocent. But I was thinking about how them being Bulgarians, and they might be half Bulgarian, a quarter Bulgarian, I don't know. And the people who are Bulgarian citizens who live in Russia, or the people who are ethnically Russian who are Bulgarian citizens and so on. I remember Romania many years ago, my pupil, shan't say her name, and the form for her said place of birth Moldova, home language Russian, nationality Bulgarian. So that's it. There's a more Bulgarian community there. So a lot of people in Southeast Europe are of mixed ethnicity, nationality, citizenship, and so forth. Or indeed, if they got false identities, maybe they're not even real Bulgarians. But I think we would have got to the bottom of that by now. But as a Slavonic-speaking and Orthodox Christian country, they're more sympathetic to Russia than most others. There's only a minority in Bulgaria, but it's a significant minority, and the huge Russian espionage operations in Bulgaria have been for quite some time. The Bulgarians have had to expel a lot of diplomats. They've constantly been railing against the ambassadress there, saying that she's poking a nose in their internal affairs, to promote politicians who have a pro-Moscow stance, and so on. So many Russian tourists there when I was in Bulgaria the other week. But the espionage operations, what does that tell them that's useful for Ukraine? Not that much. What the training involves, what equipment is going to be shipped, things like that. So it's of limited utility to them. And they're just more manpower. Really might come down to numbers, because this is a grinding attritional war. Say that the Ukrainians will run out of people a lot sooner than we will, like at least 3 times faster than we will. But obviously, Putin's trying to insulate the elite from this, and the elite are almost all Muscovites. The mayor of Moscow, Sobyanin, the other day said 45,000 Muscovites fought at the front, which I find hard to believe now, because Russia's got of the order of 300,000 troops there now. but obviously more than that will have served. You know, easily 50,000 killed, easily 100,000 invalided out. Others rotated in and out. So how many individuals have served there? Up to 600,000. But you know, now Moscow is about 10% of the Russian population. But of those who were drafted, we know who we killed. It's much less than 10% are Muscovites. It's more like 1%. So I'd be skeptical about that one. But trying to show that the capital city is pulling its weight has made an adequate contribution. So yeah, if just sheer numbers might tell eventually, getting Belarus to come and help them, but Belarus only got 9 million people. Apparently, it's very poorly equipped military. People said the Belarusian military would mutiny rather than march on Kiev, although I don't believe it would actually. But President Lukashenko says that his colleague, President Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, is not trying to twist his arm to invade Ukraine, but a bit surprised that he's not. Why wouldn't you if you're in Putin? You need to pull out all the stops. Getting more Tajik, Kyrgyz people and so on, these guest workers from wherever, Armenia, even Georgia, occasionally Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan to join the army or Wagner Group. Well, the Wagner Group is gone, but whatever its replacements, there are various other private military companies, much smaller, in return for citizenship or higher wages, often duping them, telling me you're just going to go and dig trenches for $60 a day, a very, very good wage in Russia. And then actually at gunpoint forcing them to do some military training, just using them as cannon fodder so that the losses will fall on them. But Uzbekistan is a huge reservoir of manpower, 32 million people, the third most populous former Soviet republic. And yes, people who've gone back to these Central Asian countries who've served with Wagner Group of the Russian army have been jailed in some cases, but there are many who haven't, and they might be just released quite early and so on. Maybe this is just for PR exercise. These Central Asian dictatorships just trying to show the West, you see, we're not allowing our people to be used by Russia, but I think in most cases letting them get away with it. So yeah, it's just numbers that could win for them in the end. And by win, that doesn't necessarily mean they conquer the whole of Ukraine. If they get to keep anything that they didn't have in February 2022, then that is a gain for them. If they get Ukraine to agree never to join NATO and or the European Union, or NATO or the EU to agree that we'll never join, anything like that. Remember Putin's objective at the beginning to denazify, lie. Well, there is no Nazi regime in Kiev. If it gets this regime change, Zelensky's gone, democracy's gone, any of that would be a gain for him. Or demilitarize. If their military is degraded, that would be a gain for him. It's actually been beefed up stronger than ever. If they agree to limitations in their arms, again, that would be a win for Putin. So I think, unfortunately, I think he'll get something out of this war. He'll be left with at least some of the territory he's gained in this war at the end. Thank you so much for watching the channel. So please stay tuned. Goodbye, everyone.